Hello, in this tutorial I'll show you how to make a watercolor maple leaf in Procreate. All of the brushes we'll use are included in Procreate, so let's get started. Make a new canvas. I'm going to make it screen size. Open the brush libraries. I need a brush from the classic library, so if you don't have that open, just pinch inside of the brush libraries and find the classic library. Tap it to open it. I'm going to use the monoline brush in the calligraphy set. The color of this brush doesn't really matter because we're going to just start by making a guide to draw the leaf, but for this guide I'll use black for the color. So open the Colors menu and double tap in the black area of the color disc to get black. I'll make the size of the brush 15% and the opacity 100%. Now I'm going to draw a straight vertical line in the center of the canvas. Just draw the line, hold your Apple Pencil down to snap it into a straight line, and then tap one finger on the screen to make it vertical. Tap on the arrow. Tap on one of the blue nodes on this line to open the dimensions. Tap on the link in the middle of this box to unlink these sizes. We want to change the length of this line, so tap on the right number in this box. I'm going to make it 1200 pixels. Wait for it to snap to this size. Now move this line towards the center of the canvas and up a bit. Okay, so now I want to duplicate this line. So I'm going to open the Layers menu. I'll swipe left on this layer and press Duplicate. We want to resize and rotate this line. So tap on the arrow, tap on the blue node, unlink these numbers. Now tap on the right number. And the length of this line should be 1050 pixels. Wait for it to change size. To rotate the line, tap on the green node. I'm going to rotate this 40 degrees. Wait for it to rotate. Then move this line so that it lines up with the base of the first line. Now tap the arrow. If these two lines aren't joining quite right, you can tap on the arrow again and move it again. You could even turn on snapping to help. Once you have the lines in place, let's duplicate the first line again. I want to resize and rotate this line too. So tap on the arrow, tap on a blue node, and unlink these numbers. Select the right number, and let's make this line 765 pixels. I'm going to tap on the green node and rotate it 76 degrees. Now I'll line it up like I did with the other one. We just have to make one more line, so duplicate the original line layer. Tap on the arrow, resize this line to 318 pixels, and rotate it 113 degrees. Now just move it into place. So to create the right side of this guide, I'm going to copy these lines. So open the layers and select the top 3 layers. Because this second layer is selected, I'll just swipe right on the 2 above it. Then tap Group. I'll swipe left on the new group and press Duplicate. Tap on the arrow. At the bottom of the screen, tap Flip Horizontal. Then move these lines into place on the right side of the guide. This will be our basic guide for making the leaf. I'm going to merge these layers by pinching them together. Okay, I want to create one more guide to help me actually draw the leaf. To do this, let's create a new layer. We need to draw a rectangle. To do this, draw a square, hold your Apple Pencil down until it snaps into a square shape, and then without lifting your Apple Pencil, tap one finger to make it a perfect square. Or you can select square from the top. You may need to redraw the square a few times if it's not working, So just keep redrawing it until the square is an option. Now tap on the arrow and we'll resize this square. Tap on a blue node. We don't want the dimensions to be linked. The left number will be the width of the square. I'll make that 620 pixels. The right number will be the height of the square, which will be 270 pixels. Now we have a horizontal rectangle. Move this into place so the middle top node lines up with the top of the center line. Let's make one more square. Duplicate the square layer. Tap on the arrow. Tap on a blue node. Make sure these aren't linked. I'll make the width of this square 460 pixels and the height 364 pixels. Now move this rectangle below the first square and line the blue nodes in the center up with the line. Create a new layer. I'm going to draw a diagonal line from the top left of this rectangle to the lower center of it. And when I'm done, I'll hold my Apple Pencil down to make it a perfect line. Now across this line, holding down my Apple Pencil to make it straight. And I'll do the same on the other side. So now I'm going to merge the three layers above this first guide together. Now we're ready to draw the leaf. So I'll make a new layer. The color doesn't matter because we're going to paint this, but since the leaf, I'll use a green color. I'm going to draw an arc shape from the top of this line to the middle of the left X. I'm going to make this line go a little below this spot before coming up, so it kind of looks like a J shape. If you want, you can hold your Apple Pencil down to snap it into a more perfect arc shape. Now I'm going to make another arc going from this point to the left bottom of this upper rectangle. Again, I'm going to go below the rectangle before reaching this point, and I'll hold my Apple Pencil down to snap it into an arc. Now I want to draw a diagonal line from this left point to the lower left corner of the bottom square. I'll hold my Apple Pencil down until it snaps into a straight line. If you want, you could actually duplicate this layer and flip it and create the right side that way, but I'll just use the guides to draw the right side in the same way that I did with the left. Try to make these sides look similar. Now draw the lower line to connect these two lines. I'll hold my Apple Pencil down until it snaps into a straight line. We don't need the square guide anymore, so I'll turn off its visibility. I'm also going to turn off the main guide for a moment so I can see my shape better. If you need to clean this shape up, you can erase or fix it. You may also want to redo it if you don't like how it looks before moving on to the next step. I think this looks good, so I'll turn my line guide back on. Instead of having to draw this shape again, I'm going to duplicate this leaf layer. Now tap on the arrow and let's resize this. I'll tap on the blue node, unlink these numbers. I'll make the width 430 pixels and the height 635 pixels. Now tap the green node and I'll rotate this 40 degrees. I'm going to line up this top point with the top of this line. If there's a gap between these two shapes, it's okay. We can fix it up later. Just try to fit the shapes to the guide right now. Now I'm going to duplicate that original leaf drawing again. I'll tap on the arrow and let's resize this. I'm going to unlink the sizes. I'll make the left 363 pixels and the right 712 pixels. I'll rotate this 85.5 degrees. And I'll line it up so the point lines up with the top of this line. Now I want to duplicate these two leaf parts and move them to the right. So with this layer selected, I'll swipe right on the top layer, and I'll group these. I'll swipe left on the new group and press duplicate. Now I'll tap on the arrow, and at the bottom of the screen, I'll tap flip horizontal. And I'll move these into place on the right side of the leaf. To finish the leaf, I'll create a new layer. I'm going to use this line guide to help me draw the bottom of the leaf. I'll use two arcs, and then I'm going to connect them to the center like this. You may want to try drawing this a few times until you like how it looks. Once you're done, you could redraw this on the other side, but I'll just duplicate this layer. And I'll tap on the arrow and tap flip horizontal. Now I'll move it into place. I'm going to open the layers and turn off my original guide layer. And I'm going to merge all of the leaf-shaped layers together by pinching them. We need to fill this shape with color, but to do that, make sure there aren't any gaps. I'll just use the monoline brush to clean this up a bit. Now I'll drag from the color swatch into each part of this leaf until it's filled with green. Now you can use the monoline brush to fix this up. Or you can also erase with the monoline brush. Now I'm going to tap on the arrow, and I'm going to move the leaf up and to the center of the canvas to make room for the stem. You could also resize this if you want. I'm going to tap on this layer and tap rename, and I'll call it leaf shape. I'll create a new layer for the stem. I'll rename this layer stem shape. The color for the stem doesn't really matter, but get a darker color than the one you used to draw the leaf. I'll use this dark green. Now I'll just draw the stem. When you're done, fill the stem with color. If this area is small, it may help to pinch out with 2 fingers to zoom in and then fill it. Or just use the monoline brush and color it in. I'm going to open the layers and tap on the N on the stem shape layer and reduce the opacity a bit. Now I'll use the monoline eraser to erase where the stem overlaps the leaf. This doesn't have to be perfect. Now I'm going to increase the opacity of this layer again to max. And I'm going to tap on this layer and hold until I can drag it underneath the leaf shape layer. The basic shapes of the leaf are done. Now we can paint it. I'm going to turn off the visibility of the stem shape layer. Then I'm going to tap on the leaf shape layer and I'll press select. Now I'll turn off the visibility of the leaf shape layer and I'll create a new layer above it for my paint. Because the shape below is selected, any paint we add will stay within the leaf shape. To paint this leaf, I'm going to use the watercolor brushes that are located in the Procreate library. So I'll pinch to access all of the brush libraries, and I'll tap on the Procreate library. I'll find the watercolor set, and I'm going to start with the bridge water brush. You can make your leaf any colors you want, maybe green and yellow, or a mostly orange leaf. I'm going to make this a leaf that is yellow, orange, and red. Depending on how you paint and the colors and brushes you use, each leaf will look different. So for this leaf, I'll start with a light yellow color. If you want the color I used, tap Value at the bottom of the Colors menu and enter the hexadecimal that appears on the screen. I'll make the brush size 100% and the opacity 100%. Now I'm going to paint lightly over this leaf. I'll vary my Apple Pencil pressure so the paint is darker in some places, but I want this to be a light base color. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'll get the penguin brush. I'm going to get a darker yellow color. I'll make the size 100% and the opacity 64%. You can try different sizes and opacities depending on your leaf. So now I'll add this darker yellow to my leaf. As you paint, pick up your Apple Pencil sometimes. Again, I'm not painting this too dark. I want areas that are light and some areas that are darker. Because this is watercolor, I like this variety. I also like that it creates interesting edges within the leaf. I'm going to create a new layer. This time I'll get orange. I'm still using the penguin brush for this. I'll just add some orange to this leaf. But I don't want to cover all of the yellow areas, so I'll leave some of that at the bottom and maybe just paint very lightly over some areas. I'm going to make another new layer, and I'll get a bright reddish color. I'll keep some of the yellow and orange below, and add more of this to the top and sides of the leaf. I think keeping the paint light and layering it makes it look more interesting. Now I'm going to make a new layer, and I'll get a darker red color. I'll add just a bit of this, mostly around the edges of the leaf. You can also try other brushes, so I'll create a new layer. I'm going to get the Tansy brush. The brush size is 100%, and the opacity is about 64%. I'll paint with varying pressure. I don't want a lot of this paint. Also with this brush, if you paint and don't lift your Apple Pencil, you can tilt the Apple Pencil and kind of spread the paint around. This can add some nice texture and edges into the paint. So you just keep adding layers with different colors and brushes to get this watercolor effect. Maybe I'll just do one more layer with a darker red. And I'll use the Tansy brush to add that to a couple of areas. Now I just want to make some dark edges to make the leaf stand out more from the background. So I'll create a new layer. And I'll get the penguin brush again. I'll get a darker red. I'm going to make the size of this brush small, like 10%. And I'll make the opacity maybe 72%. Now I'll use the side of this brush to paint just some of the edges at the top and sides of the leaf. And then for the bottom of the leaf, I might use a darker orange instead of a red. I think I'm done painting, so I'll press the selection button to deselect this. If you want any layers of the paint to be more saturated, you can duplicate the layer you want. So maybe I want to add more red, so I'll duplicate this bright red layer. And then on the duplicated layer, I can tap on the end and bring the opacity down if it's too much. Maybe I'll also duplicate the orange layer. And I'll duplicate one of the yellow layers. Once you like how the paint looks, you can merge the layers together. So I'll just pinch all of these paint layers together, but don't merge the leaf shape layer with this. Now let's do the same thing to the stem. I'm going to keep the stem layer turned off, but I'll tap on it and press select. Now I'll create a new layer above the stem. I'll start with the Bridgewater brush again, and I'll get a yellow color. I might bring the size of the brush down, maybe to 31%. Now add this yellow color lightly to the stem, making some areas darker than others. Now create a new layer. I'll get the penguin brush, and I'll get that bright orange color I used before. I'll make the size maybe 15%, and I'll paint lightly over areas of the stem. Make sure not to cover all of the yellow color. I'll make a new layer, and I'll get the bright red paint. I'll paint over the stem lightly. I'll make a new layer. I'll get this red color and paint some more, mostly underneath the leaf area, and maybe at the bottom of the stem. And now I'll make a new layer and get the darkest red and I'll use the edge of the brush to paint just some of the areas along the side of the stem. Okay, I'm done painting, so I'll deselect the stem. And I'm going to merge the painted stem layers together, but not the stem shape. Then I'll move this painted stem beneath the painted leaf. And I can tap on the painted leaf and press merge down to merge these together. I'll tap on this layer and I'll rename it painted leaf. Let's add the veins to the leaf. I'll create a new layer above the leaf. I'm going to get a brush from the classic library. I'll find the sketching set, and I'm going to use the 6B pencil. I'll get this dark red color, I'm going to make the size of the brush 63%, and the opacity 80%. This brush is pressure sensitive, so I'm not going to use full pressure as I draw these veins. Using medium pressure, I'll start at the bottom of the leaf, and I'll draw a line toward the top of the leaf. Don't make this a perfectly straight line. These lines should look hand-drawn. Now I'm going to draw lines from the bottom of the leaf to each of the main points of the leaf. Now I'll draw lines from each of these lines to the additional points of the leaf. And also to other areas of the leaf. And wherever you think the leaf needs additional veins. Use lighter pressure to make some veins lighter than others. Once you like how these look, you can merge them with the painted leaf layer. Now the last step to make this look more like watercolor is to add a paper background. To do this, I'm going to create an easy paper brush. In the Classic library, find the airbrushing set. Swipe left on the soft brush and press Duplicate. Tap on this duplicated brush to open the Brush Studio. Tap Grain. Next to Grain Source, tap Edit. Tap Import and then Source Library. Under Grain Source, we're going to find a paper that might work. I'm going to use this European paper coarse. I'm going to use 2 fingers to spin the direction of this texture so it's more vertical. Then I'll press the check mark here. Under Grain Behavior, tap Texturized. Drag the scale slider up to 35 or type it in. Tap on the check mark in the upper right corner of the screen when you're done. I'll tap and hold on this brush and tap Rename. I'll name it Paper so I can find it whenever I want to use a paper texture. Now let's add the paper to the canvas. Create a new layer and drag it underneath the painted leaf layer. I'm going to use a gray color for the paper. You can double tap in the left area of the color disc to get gray. Now make the size of the brush 100% and the opacity 100%. Paint evenly over the whole canvas. Don't worry if it's too dark right now. Now open the layers and we can tap on the N and reduce the opacity of this. I'll make it about 26%. Now I'll rename this layer Paper. I want to make another paper layer so that we can make the paper show through the paint a bit more. So I'll duplicate this layer and I'll move it to the top of the layers. Now tap on the N to change the blend mode. I'll choose Color Burn. If you change the opacity, you can see more or less of the paper texture. I'm going to leave it at 26%, but you could increase it if you wanted to show more. Now, because you still have the leaf shapes, if you wanted to paint different color leaves, you could use the same method of selecting the shapes, creating new layers, and painting. But you could also change the color of the leaf by duplicating your painted leaf layer, and then turning off the original painted leaf layer, and then trying different adjustments. So I could tap the Adjustments button, and I could try Hue, Saturation, Brightness. And I could use the Hue slider to try different colors. Another fun way to change the color is by using the gradient map in the adjustments. You can cycle through the existing gradient maps, or even choose your own colors by creating your own gradient map. And this way you can make lots of different colored leaves. I hope you enjoyed painting this watercolor maple leaf. Thank you for watching.